Coming up on this week's Salt and Sauce Chat Show.
I remember after that game, I was in the darkest of places and so was he. And I said that to him, I says, big man, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in this cup final, because he had been absolutely tremendous for us the whole season. Made some brilliant saves in the semi-final, the quarter-final, and we were very much collectively a fantastic group of boys, great teammates. We were really close. So it was the same for him as it was me after the game, but it was different. Obviously we went back to Hearts when we used to change managers every sort of 5-6 weeks. We had obviously an owner who I met him a few times.
Mad
he was
lad.
obviously larger than life, and he was mad. He got the appropriate nickname, there's no doubt about that. And we knew that it wasn't the Hearts that we had left, and it wasn't the Hearts that I had supported all my life. There was so much happened. He was amazed at the support that the club got. Not just in Edinburgh, but everywhere. For Hearts fans all over the world, there were some Hearts fans were giving us their last penny. Other Hearts fans were giving you a lot more because they had more money. And even young kids, that was one of the things that I was amazed. A young lad came out the training ground, and you're lucky if he was 5-6 year old, and basically says, that's the money I've got in my piggy bank.
Welcome along to another episode of the Salt and Sauce Chat Show. I'm David Simmons. We're back in the studio, and first guest is an ex-Hearts player, ex-Hearts manager, ex-Hearts legend, well, still legend, Mr. Gary Locke. Gary, thanks for coming on, mate.
No problem, pal. How are you?
Not too bad. I do appreciate your time, mate.
Not a problem.
Let's go right back to the start. You were a youngster, you grew up in Bonnyrigg. Who were the first team players at Hearts that you were looking up to, aspiring to be?
To be fair, I've watched Hearts. My first game when I was 2 year old, but obviously when I can kind of remember watching Hearts, they had players, I don't know if you'll remember yourself, you had like Pat Byrne, Willie Gibson, Frank Liddell was the centre half, and that was kind of the early years of watching. But for me, the main team that I kind of began kind of watching, my heroes if you like, were the 86 squad. So you had like Gary Mackay, John Robertson, obviously Sandy Clark. They were huge heroes of mine. I had a fantastic team, and obviously it was a great season to watch Hearts.
I take it it was always a dream to play for the Jambos one day.
Yeah, that was my ambition in life, right from an early age. I was a diehard, went everywhere, went to all the games. Obviously grew up in Bonnyrigg, which was a strong Hearts area. I went on the supporters bus every week, so it was a dream come true when I eventually signed for Hearts, and to go in full time and kind of play with the guys who I obviously all my life looked up to. Was a dream come true.
Tell us about that. I mean, when you went into the dressing room, a young kid at the time, was there anybody that come over and sort of took you under their wing and settled you into the team?
Yeah, we were really lucky, to be honest, because when I trained with Hearts on a Tuesday night, sometimes Robbo and Gary Mackay would come and take the training session. So we were really lucky in that respect. And obviously, like, you're like a rabbit caught in the headlights when they first walk in the door. You're like, there's my heroes. And you're kind of trying to get them to sign things, to sign my school bag in that, rather than actually thinking, they're taking the training tonight, I better concentrate here. So it was a brilliant experience. And then obviously I got to know them through, obviously they took a few training sessions, so they got to know some of the S forms. And then when I went in full time, I would probably say Gary Mackay and Robbo were the two that kind of looked after me. Alan McLaren was another one, although he was a wee bit more, how could I put it, a bit more aggressive in looking after you. If you didn't have his kit laid out properly, he'd sort you out. So the three of them were great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it when I went in full time.
Do you remember your debut for Hearts?
I remember it like yesterday. I went on half time for Derek Ferguson, last game of the season at McDermott Park, and although we got beat in the game, it was an typical end of season game. There wasn't really anything at stake. But to get on the pitch for 45 minutes, I was just absolutely delighted.
I mean, you never looked back from then. You were soon made Hearts club captain at an early age. What was that sort of pressure like? How did you adapt to that?
It was great. I think it's not really till you finish your career that you look back at kind of that happening. I didn't see that as a huge thing at the time. I was always quite loud on the pitch. I was always one to communicate and talk and try and organise things right throughout my football career. So when the gaffer at the time, Jim Jeffries, made me captain, obviously I was over the moon. Again, that was another dream come true for me to actually captain Hearts. You know, to play for them was good enough for me, but to captain them at such a young age, it was fantastic. But you didn't actually, you know, look at how much of a responsibility that was until you're kind of a wee bit older. And when I look back at it, you know, it was a huge achievement and something that I'm immensely proud of.
Absolutely, mate, and quite rightly so. Let's talk about some events during your career. On May 1996, you experienced probably one of your worst days in football, 5-1 against Rangers in the Scottish Cup. It was a bit of a roller coaster day. Obviously, you're leading the team out, but you experienced a horrific injury, didn't you? Do you remember that roller coaster day?
Yeah, I remember it well. And again, looking back at that, I probably got myself, you know, just too worked up for the whole occasion. You know, obviously being a local lad, the build up to the game, I had to get about 400-500 tickets for the game. There was a lot of buses left from Bonnyrigg to go, family, friends, all that type of stuff. And, you know, I'm thinking on the build up to that game, well, I'm going to be the youngest captain ever to lift the Scottish Cup. You know, what a dream this is going to be. And like what football can do to players, when you're kind of at your peak and doing really, really well, it's got a wee habit of kicking you in the teeth a little bit. And, you know, I went into the game, and probably similar to Gascoigne when he played for Tottenham against Nottingham Forest. You know, he went in, he flew into tackles, he ended up doing his cruciate. I was so worked up for the game. I went to tackle him early in the game, and his turn went a different direction, and I just felt, you know, my knee go kind of crunch. And I'd never really had a serious injury before. And when that happened, I knew I had done something bad, but obviously being early in the game and being the captain, I tried to play on, and stupidly, you know, played on for about another 2-3 minutes, and then the ball went over my head, and the same thing happened. So that I knew that was me. And then after that, you know, it was just a disaster of a day for everybody else.
Yeah, that was a famous day. Obviously, Giles Rousey, Loudrop sort of cross shot went under his legs. Obviously, your injury was physical. His was probably more mentally. How do you think he recovered from that? And as a captain going forward, how did you help him out?
Yeah, well, I remember after that game, you know, I was in the darkest of places, and so was he. And I said that to him. I says, you know, big man, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in this cup final, because he had been absolutely tremendous for us the whole season. Made some brilliant saves in the semi-final, the quarter-final, and we were very much collectively a fantastic group of boys, you know, great teammates. We were really close. So it was the same for him as it was me after the game. We both kind of had a wee chat with each other. I'm sure all the rest of the boys had a chat with Giles that day as well. And, you know, luckily for us, he went on to be a magnificent goalie, but also a hero in the 98 Cup final as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. You missed it again, obviously, cause injury, but you did lift the cup with Stevie Fulton. Well, what's your memories of that campaign and that day?
Yeah, my memories were, obviously, I'd played a lot of the early games in the early rounds, and I'd played a lot of games that season. And again, just seemed to be my luck with cup finals. You know, we were about maybe 2 weeks before the semi-final. We were due to play Falkirk at Ibrox, and we were playing Kilmarnock in a league game, and I felt the knee again. You know, I went in probably again for a tackle I shouldn't have went in for. Felt the knee, and I had to get another operation. So the gaffer, to be fair to him, gave me every chance. You know, he says to me, look, if you're fit, you'll be playing in the final. But, you know, for me as a captain and as a huge Hearts fan, I had to be honest as well. And that was one thing I've been all my life. You know, you've got to be honest with the manager. So on the Monday, I knew I tried to do a wee bit with the ball at Tynecastle, and I knew I had no chance. So it was heartbreaking, don't get me wrong. You know, I was in a dark place again when I went home that night. But it was like, you know what, the team comes first, and I told him that I wasn't fit. So he says, right, fine, I can get on with sorting the team out. Big Dave McPherson played right back that day and was tremendous. So my focus that week was just, you know, get behind the boys, do what I would do even if I was playing, try and encourage everybody, get everybody upbeat, up for the game. And the boys went out and were fantastic.
What was the celebrations like afterwards?
Pretty embarrassing, to be fair. You know, after the game, obviously you have the pre-match at 12 o'clock, and then you go to the game, and myself and a few of the boys that weren't stripped that day, Lee Makel, Al McManus, Jose Katongo, Neil Poynton, you know, we sat in the stand, and obviously, you know, we're buzzing, but at the same time, they were all disappointed like me that they weren't playing. So we sat and watched the game, and then, you know, obviously everything that happened. It was a fantastic result. And then Stevie Fulton and Giles, they got picked for a drugs test after the game. So obviously we've not had anything to eat all day. It was a scorching hot day. We've went onto the team bus, and normally you would be on the team bus for half an hour and then away, but we had to wait on filters doing the toilet, so he was about 2 hours. So in that time, him, trying to do the toilet, we are drinking, the team bus was just like the local pub. It had every type of drink you could imagine on it, so we were all drinking that. And then by the time we got back to Tynecastle, every single one of us was absolutely miraculous, apart from probably Big Dave McPherson, who was obviously the experienced campaigner, and he knew not to go absolutely mental. But us as young lads, we were all really tight. We've got off the team bus. Hazel Irvine done an interview with myself, Filters, Davy Weir, and I think it's probably the most embarrassed I've ever been in terms of my football career. I genuinely could hardly speak.
Because you were on top of the bus and everything, weren't you?
I was glad I stood at the front of the bus with the cup, and the rest of the boys, at the time I didn't know, but they had kicked the skylights out of the bus and went on top of it. And to this day, it amazes me that none of them, especially the state they were in, I think it'd be hard enough for anybody standing on the top of a bus when it's moving not to fall off, but the fact that they were all in such a bad state, it amazed me that they all managed to stay on top of it.
And obviously then the parade as well the following day, is that right around Edinburgh? It
was incredible. And I've said it many times, it's something that as a player, and the current crop of players at Hearts, it's the best experience of your life, and it'd be great if we can go on and win another trophy, and fingers crossed that we do that. But I've been fortunate to do that twice, and honestly, it's something that you'll never forget. Even talking about it now, it makes the sort of hairs in the back of your neck stand up, because it's a fantastic experience, and to see so many happy people on the streets of Edinburgh, it's something that you cherish.
I mean, you mentioned a few characters, like Stevie Fulton, Giles Rousset and stuff. At your time at Hearts, who were the big sort of characters you played alongside?
We had a few, to be honest. We had a really great dressing room. That was, I know a lot of players will say that to you, but that was genuinely the best dressing room in my whole career that I had been involved in. We were very, very close. A lot of us kind of came through the youth ranks at Hearts together, and then obviously the gaffer brought in Davy Weir, who ended up, he's ended up one of my best mates in the game, to be honest with you. But you had him. You had Kutongo, who was just laugh a minute. He'd come up, he used to tell some ridiculous stories, and a lot of it was made up, but obviously the boys didn't know when he was lying or when he was telling the truth. I think Robbo got done, because he told Robbo that his father had passed away because he'd been chased by a lion or something in the jungle, and the lion had ate him and all that, and Robbo bought into it, I think told the media, and ended up, Jose was only winding him up. So it was like wee things like that, and obviously we at that time, because you didn't have mobile phones and that, we spent a lot of time away from football together as well. And some of the trips that we had were absolutely fantastic.
I think there's a few Magaluf series, isn't there?
There's a few stories.
Would you get away with that sort of thing now?
No chance, absolutely no chance. You'd probably get to jail, if I'm being honest. Some of the things that we used to get up to. And I think Paul Ritchie did a podcast not long ago, and he was telling the story. It was actually his stag do as well. And Roddy McKenzie was getting married, if I'm right, in Miles Hogarth. And there's a wee island, you can see it from the beach. So we hired pedalos, we went away out to the island, dropped the three of them off, and basically says, right, you've got to run to the top of the island and back without any gear on. So as they've done that, we've jumped on the pedalos back to the beach, and it must have been about 2 hours later, the three of them were sitting on the back of this family's pedalo, naked, and all the boys are just sitting there like absolutely poorless. But it was brilliant. They were brilliant times.
Like you say, I mean, there was no sort of WhatsApp groups and things like that back then. You needed that for sort of team bonding, didn't you?
Without a shadow of doubt. I think, in the days, it's completely changed now, don't get me wrong, but in the days, I used to think, as the captain, the more that we can do away from football, the closer we'll all become, and the better it'll be for team spirit, for not just that, just going that extra wee yard for each other on the pitch as well. And we did, I made that a big thing, at least once a month we'd always do something together, whether it was just going for a bite to eat or going go-karting or go golfing or whatever. And that was a huge part of that team being successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in 2001 you moved on, you left Hearts, you joined Bradford City. After 9 years at your boyhood club, I mean, how hard was it to walk away?
Yeah, it was really difficult. I mean, I looked at it at the time though, and then Craig Levine came in as manager, and I knew Craig would have his own ideas. Obviously I'd been a teammate of Craig's, and the disappointing thing, I wasn't that far off being there for 10 years. I think it was like 9 years 9 months or something I'd been there. So you look at it and go, I might have got a testimonial, you never know. But to get the opportunity to play in the English Premier League, I would have been absolutely crazy not to accept that. And Bradford at the time were, down the bottom of the Premier League, but to get the opportunity to go and play against, Newcastle and Liverpool, Man United, all these types of teams, it was again a dream come true. Go and test yourself against the best players in the world. And I went down there and absolutely loved it. It was a fantastic experience, and again improved me as a player.
I mean, Jim Jeffries was the gaffer down at Bradford. The amazing stat is obviously every club you played for, Jim Jeffries has been the gaffer. They would be, man, they would be Hearts, Killie,
Aye.
Bradford.
Yep.
I mean, how big an influence was Jim Jeffries on Gary Locke?
It was massive, and I think, as much as he took me to Bradford, took me to Kilmarnock as well, I think he trusted me as a player. I think he could trust me in the dressing room as well. He knew that, whatever dressing room I was in, I was a big fan of getting the team together and having a good team spirit and getting on with everybody. And I also like to think they thought I was a half decent player as well. I know when he left Bradford, I had a spell playing under Nicky Law that played with Rangers. His dad took over, and I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. Really enjoyed that. But as you say, the gaffer and Billy were two huge influences on my career, and I loved working under them because I always felt they got the best out of not just me but all the players that worked with them. But at the same time, they were very fair. That's what I liked about them. They were harsh at times. They talk about Sir Alex Ferguson's hairdryer, but trust me, the gaffer's hairdryer was every bit just as bad. But at the same time, if you pulled your weight and you did well for them, they were outstanding with you, and that was what I respected.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go on to. Obviously, Billy Brown working alongside Jim Jeffries. I mean, what made they two click? Was it a good cop, bad cop mix, or was it?
No, I think they just had a fantastic way of getting the best out of players. I think they had a fantastic eye for a player as well. They brought in a lot of quality players to Hearts especially, and to Kilmarnock when I was at Kilmarnock. But they bounced off each other well. The gaffer didn't really get too involved on the training. Billy basically took all the training. The gaffer would have the odd day where he took it and you knew you were just running about and smashing each other, and he'd be running after you and making sure that you were at it. But the two of them were great, and as I say, they had a hugely successful managerial career, the two of them. And if you ask any player, I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay them. If you ask any player that worked with them, no matter who it is, they'll all say that they loved it. I think that's the biggest compliment I can pay them.
Absolutely. So after a year down south at Bradford, you moved back north of the border to Kilmarnock, Jeffries. Was that the right move for you at that time?
At that time, it probably was. I'd had such a difficult spell at Bradford, in as much that the chairman there had spent a lot of money when they were in the Premier League, and like a lot of teams in that time, they relied on television revenue and TV deals and all that. And I think it was ITV Digital had a big deal with the English Championship, and the deal collapsed. I think it was Satanta Sports or something. So the deal collapsed, and then the club basically went into administration. The players basically didn't get paid any money. They couldn't afford to pay the salaries, all that type of stuff. Kind of followed me about my career, to be honest with you. But it ended up anyway. They ended up in a mess, and I was at Bradford and I loved it down there. I genuinely wanted to stay there and play, but I was in a sort of tricky situation where it was sort of 4 or 5 months where you weren't getting paid. We weren't sure whether Bradford were going to survive, all that type of stuff. And then on the other side of it, you've got the sort of option of a 3-year deal, a bit of stability, all that type of stuff. So I'd probably say it wasn't a football decision. It was more a decision of, I had my oldest daughter had just been born, and I'm thinking, right, I need to start thinking about, my kids rather than probably football. So, but when I went up to Kilmarnock, I must admit I met the directors there, and at that time there was a guy, Bill Costley, who was a director. The Moffat family were heavily involved, and they were fantastic people. So as soon as I met them, and obviously I knew about the gaffer and Billy, and I really enjoyed when I played against Kilmarnock. It was a great setup. They had aspirations to make the club really big. They were going to build a training ground, they were building a hotel, all that type of stuff. So they were a club that were very ambitious, and that was what I wanted. I wanted a club that were ambitious, and I loved my time there.
So do you remember the first time you made a return back to Tynecastle as a Kilmarnock player?
I did. We drew one each. big boy Sean Hesse got sent off after about 20 minutes, so we were down to 10 men early doors. And Hearts had made a lot of signings that summer, you know, a lot of decent players. And I didn't have the best of games, if I'm honest, but I played about 5 different positions that day because, you know, I played centre half, I was right wing back, I was centre mid. I think I had a wee 10-minute spell where I played left back as well. We made a few changes, but we drew the game 1 each. So I was delighted that, you know, my first game back at Tynecastle, we didn't lose the game because, you know, obviously I was, as much as I was a Hearts man, you know, when I was at Kilmarnock, I was desperate to beat Hearts because, you know, that was the way I looked at things. You know, I was very professional and I wanted to go and win the game, especially when you've got all your friends and family on the other end shouting abuse at you. So I remember it well. As I say, I didn't have the best of games, but we drew 1 each, got a point at a difficult venue. And, you know, we had a really good season that season at Kilmarnock.
Well, you made 111 appearances for Killie. In 2009, you retired from playing. How hard a decision was that?
That was horrible. That was as bad a feeling as, you know, coming off in the cup final. You know, when you hear the words that you have to retire. It wasn't my decision to retire. You know, I had a lot of problems with my knee towards the end of my career, and I tried to manage the knee as well as I could. But it was getting to the stage, and a lot of players tell you that you know when it's time. You definitely do. And I was getting to the stage where I was taking these things called Zydols.
Right.
Honestly, if you get any pain, you need to get these done. They're absolutely sensational. But it was generally I couldn't feel my face in the warm up. You know, it would numb everything, and I felt great. But see, the Sunday morning, getting up when they'd wore off and try to get down the stairs, I was just in constant pain. So I seen 3 different surgeons who were all, you know, top notch, and they basically said, look, if you continue to play and you try and play, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. If you retire, you know, we can operate on your knee for one last time, and hopefully you'll have a decent, you know, volume of life, if you like. You'll be able to get about, you'll be able to run about with the kids. But if you keep playing, it was kind of bone on bone in the knee, and I had the knee basically a sort of 75-year-old man. So when they tell you that, your decision's made for you. And to be fair, I was kind of getting to the stage where I wasn't enjoying it as well because I was in constant pain all the time. And when you're playing, you know, fans didn't know what you're going through to try and get on the pitch. And if you have a bad game, you know, they're on you. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, if there is games where I'm not playing well, the fans didn't know, you know, I've taken X amount of tablets to just get on the pitch today. They just expect you to go out and play well. So the decision was made, and, you know, I was obviously absolutely devastated because, you know, football was everything that I knew, and I really, really struggled, you know, for a couple of months after that, the fact that, you know, you're never going to play again.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't out of the game very long in 2010. Jim Jeffries, he brought you back to Tynecastle's first team coach. How did this role sort of differ from being on the park? How did you adjust it? Well,
it was, initially I had kind of thought I was joining his backroom staff at Kilmarnock, and I thought that would be quite hard because I'm going to go from being a player with all your teammates and all your mates to then having to sort of tell them what to do all the time. But that kind of fell through, and then when I went to Hearts, I was glad that I went to Hearts and probably no Kilmarnock because it was all boys that I hadn't played with. So it was a wee bit easier when you're telling them, you know, what to do, or if you're maybe having a wee, you know, argument with one or two, you didn't really mind so much because they've not really been close mates of yours. But it was different. Obviously, we went back to Hearts when they used to change managers every sort of 5-6 weeks. We had obviously an owner who I only met him. I met him a few times.
Mad
he was obviously larger than life, and he was mad. You know, he got the appropriate nickname. There's no doubt about that. And we knew that it wasn't the Hearts that we had left, and it wasn't the Hearts that I had supported all my life. You know, there was so much happened. And when we went back, you know, luckily for us, things had kind of mellowed a little bit because I think previous managers before the gaffer went back, they got all sorts of problems with them trying to pick the team and all that type of stuff. But we were very, very fortunate that when we went and we made that decision as well, you know, we said that we'll go back, can't wait to go back because obviously we're all Hearts and we've all got Hearts like running through our blood. But the minute that he tries to pick the team, there isn't any point in us being there.
Right. I mean, Jim departed, in came Paulo Sergio. I mean, you still remain plans in Paulo Sergio's plans, sorry. What was he like to work for?
He was, I couldn't speak highly enough of Paulo. Absolutely outstanding. And for me, you know, as a as a coach and wanting to learn all the time, it was brilliant in as much that he was completely different for the Gaffer and Billy. You know, everything that he did was different. You know, he changed so much. You know, training routines were different. We did a lot more sort of tactical stuff, a lot more shape. The training probably wasn't as high tempo as what it was with the Gaffer and Billy, but it was a lot more in terms of how we're going to shape up the team, where he wanted players all over the pitch, all that type of stuff. So it was fantastic, and you know, he had been manager of Sporting Lisbon before he came to Hearts. So for me, you know, I was delighted to work with somebody of that calibre, and you know, he took to me straight away, and we've ended up, you know, just like brothers. You know, I talk to him all the time, keep in touch with him all the time, and he's doing really well in Portugal at the minute.
Superb. I mean, he did really well at Hearts as well in 2012, the famous 5-1 against the old enemy.
Again, when you look back at your career, both in coaching and playing, there's occasions that you'll never ever forget, and that's certainly one of them. I don't think I'm not the only one that's never going to forget that.
I mean, how huge was that game?
It was massive. It was the biggest game I had ever been involved in, without a shadow of a doubt, because the chances, and it might happen again, you know, in my lifetime, who knows, but you know, it's very, very slim, I think, that Hearts will face Hibs in another Scottish Cup final. You know, I think you've seen the last time that we had faced them in the Scottish Cup final was about 100 years before that one. So the chances of it happening again, you know, it could happen, of course it could, but we knew that was a huge, huge game, and whoever lost that game, we're never ever going to get to forget it. You know, even now, you still, people talk to you about that all the time, so you're never going to forget that. And on the day, you know, it couldn't have been any better for us. I would have taken 1-0 with a last minute winner, but to win the game 5-1 and dominate the game as much as we did, and everything that did happen, you know, Hibs getting a player sent off and other fans leaving just after half time, all that type of stuff, it couldn't have been any better.
And what was it like, you try to G the players up for that game? Obviously, how much it must have meant for you, but now being on the coaching staff, obviously try to get that message across to the players.
Yeah, it was one thing that I felt me and Paulo, you know, worked really well, because he was very cool, calm and collected. You know, it was, you know, I felt even in the build up to the game, I thought we should have went away to prepare for the game, because obviously we did that with Billy and the Gaffer in '98 and got away for all the madness of preparing for a cup final. Whereas, especially with being Hibs and being, you know, the two Edinburgh teams, everywhere you went, people were just talking about it, and Hibs fans would have a go at you, and Hearts fans would be wanting to talk to you about the team and all that type of stuff. So I genuinely thought we should have went away, but Paulo being Paulo, you know, he's like, no, I'm very calm about this, Locke. He says, the players will sleep in their own beds. He says they'll get better sleep, they'll be more relaxed because they'll be with their families all week, and all that type of stuff. And I was like, well, you know, fantastic, you know, he's the Gaffer, we do what he wants. And, you know, we shut down Tynecastle that week. Nobody could get in to watch the training, anything like that. And the preparation and the build-up was absolutely bang on. And the tactics and all that on the day were fantastic as well.
Worked an absolute treat. I mean, Hearts have had, 3 major Scottish Cup success in the last, 30 years. So we've discussed the '98 one, we've discussed the 2012 one. What were you doing on the day? Beat Gretna on penalties in 2006?
I was in Hearts End. I was in Hearts End. As I say, just done what I would have done if I was a fan. You know, we had, it must have been again 8-9 buses from Bonnyrigg. I met all my mates, all my family, my mum and dad, all that. We were on the same bus, and as per usual, it's a day out for everybody. You know, we're through, I think we went through to Rutherglen early doors. We were booked into one of the social clubs there, and I think that was probably a different final for a lot of Hearts fans, because me included, you're just expecting to go through, beat Gretna, go, you know, you're organising the celebrations and the Saturday night and the Sunday and what have you. And it, you know, we nearly fell flat on our face, if I'm being honest. You know, when you looked at the Hearts team that day, what a team it was, with the amount of full international players we had. And no disrespect to Gretna, but, you know, you look at the size of the Gretna, you know, club, the football club, and you're thinking, you know, we should win this easy. And we made it really difficult, but again, you know, it was a brilliant day to be a Hearts fan, because, you know, all that matters is that you win the cup, and nobody talks about how we won it. It's just the fact 2006 Hearts won the cup, and as I say, I was there as a fan.
Back to Pablo Sergio. I mean, he departed, John McGlynn came in, he took over the side, but in February 2013 they parted ways, and you took over the hot seat at Tynecastle, didn't you? How was that to be manager of Heart and Midlothian?
Again, it was something that I didn't expect. Obviously, looking back again, you look at it and you go, too young, too inexperienced probably to take the job. But as a Hearts man through and through, and you get offered the manager's job, you're not going to turn it down. Yeah. And I didn't obviously know what was going to come from that, in as much that I probably took the job at the worst possible time.
Aye. No, that's it. I mean, your time in charge, it was fully hurdles, really, wasn't it? You were doomed for the off. What was it? Entered administration, 15-point deduction, and a transfer embargo.
Yep. Aye, well, couldn't have got any harder, that's for sure. And I think as well, even an experienced manager would have struggled with everything that was going on. But for me, it wasn't just being the manager. I was a huge fan of the club, and one day I was speaking to Sergius, who was one of the Lithuanian directors, and he's saying to me, you've got a good budget, it's a big summer for us, we need to rebuild the squad. And I'm thinking, there's a few players that I'm quite keen to bring to the club, I think would do well for the club. And then the next again day, it kind of sort of summed up what the Lithuanians were like. They didn't really tell you the truth ever. And then the next again day, I go in, and Trevor Birch and Brian Jackson, the two administrators, are sitting at the same desk. That he says to me, you have a good budget, go and rebuild the squad. They're sitting there saying, by the way, this club 2 weeks' time might be shut. And I've said it many a time. For me, not just as the manager, but as a huge fan, that was like a dagger in the heart. And I knew what the fans had put into the club. 6 months previous, they'd done a share issue where there was probably near enough £2 million raised, and you're sitting, and that's the first thing that came into my head. I'm thinking, I've got to appeal to the fans again to give us money, and they've already gave us near enough £2 million. Where are they going to get money to help us survive? And obviously the response after
How close did it come? How close did it come to the doors closing?
You would not believe. I mean, a lot of Hearts fans maybe think, well, we're always going to be okay. But there was days where Brian would openly say, by the way, this could be it. I think we played a couple of games in that pre-season, and I think you could genuinely see the emotion on a lot of Hearts fans' faces, that they were so happy we were still here. And even for me, I had so many nights where I went home and you were never thinking straight. You're like, what am I going to do if Hearts aren't here? This is my team. This is the team that I've supported all my life. This is what all my family and friends kind of work 9 till 5 every day of the week to get money to go and watch us on a Saturday. And we were really, really close to not being here.
I think you were about to say it as well when I asked the last question, that the fans, they did dig deep again, didn't they? And
unbelievable. And it made you proud to be a Hearts supporter. People say, it's just an old cliche and what have you, but it was. The money that they raised in such a short space of time was nothing short of incredible. And I tried to make sure that I attended every single function that was organised, because it meant so much. The fact that the supporters were keeping the club alive. And even when I still speak to Brian Jackson to this day. He was amazed at the support that the club got. Not just in Edinburgh, but everywhere. For Hearts fans all over the world, there were some Hearts fans were giving us their last penny. Other Hearts fans were giving you a lot more because they had more money. And even young kids, that was one of the things that I was amazed. A young lad came into the training ground, and you're lucky if he was 5-6 year old, and basically says, that's the money I've got in my piggy bank. This is for Hearts. And you're sitting there going, even now talking about it, it's difficult, because you're sitting there going, this is incredible. But because he was the first, we made sure that, when we looked like we were getting out of it, that he came in and met the players, met all the backroom staff, all the people behind the scenes. And I felt that was really important. But we couldn't do it with everybody, because everybody, whoever, even if they gave you 20 pence, they played their part in keeping the club alive, and obviously they've prospered ever since.
I mean, even to this day, the support still putting a lot of money into the club, don't they?
Absolutely unbelievable, and it just shows you what the club means to so many people. The fact that we still get 8,000 people, the Foundation of Hearts, donating money to the club every single month. And I think it's really, it's testament to the fans. They just didn't want to see that ever happening again. It's unbelievable, and as I said earlier, it makes you immensely proud to be a Hearts supporter.
Absolutely. I mean, you departed the hot seat in 2014. You had managerial spells at Kilmarnock, at Wraith Rovers and Cowdenbeath. Do you ever see a return to managerial, maybe under different circumstances at Hearts with a...
Listen, you can never say never. I love my role at Hearts at the moment. You know, I'm learning a completely different role. You know, I've always been on the football side of every club that I've been at, whereas, you know, Anne gave me the opportunity to go back into Hearts, obviously in a different position, but to see what the business side of the club's like, and, you know, I take my hat off to the job that, you know, the boss has done. She's done an incredible job, not just saving the club, but if you look at the club in terms of the business, you know, it's absolutely unbelievable. And even through COVID, you know, if you look, you know, we got a bit of stick because we were the first club to basically say, look, we need to look at wages, look at the salaries, all that type of stuff. But it just showed you how far ahead, you know, Anne is in terms of she kind of seen into the future, if you like, to seen what was going to happen with COVID, all the different obstacles that were faced during COVID, and it's been horrendous. But the fact that, you know, we're still managing to, you know, plod along, get new players in, get new members of staff on board on the football side, it just shows you how well run the club is.
Well, that's it. I mean, Hearts were victim, obviously, of the COVID pandemic. They got demoted down a league. But what is it like being involved in the club at this current stage? I mean, obviously, it's hopeful that I'm going to go straight back up. But is it... What sort of impact has COVID-19 had on?
It's been horrendous. You know, obviously, I didn't see the accounts and all that, so I couldn't tell you just how bad an impact it's had on the club, but I'd imagine it's affected us as badly as it's affecting everyone. And in any business as well, you know, there'll not be a business that's not suffered through COVID, and I don't think any of us could have seen what was going to happen. But, you know, we're in a position now where hopefully, you know, Robbie's done a fantastic job. We've got us top of the league. Not what to tempt fate, but we're looking good to come back up into the Premier League, and I'm very hopeful that by the time fans come back to Tynecastle, we'll be back in the Premier League where, you know, we should have been anyway. But we'll not go into that because we'll be here all day. But the bottom line is, you know, we'll hopefully be back in the Premier League. Hopefully the fans will get to come back into the stadium at the start of the new season. But as I say, it'll all depend on, you know, what happens with COVID first. We've got to get on top of that first before that happens. Yeah,
well, hopefully when fans can return, they take opportunity to use the hospitality. Your club ambassador, it'll be you that they meet on match days, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you know, I love it. It's the ideal job for me. You know, you're talking about Hearts 24/7. Obviously, you're trying to keep people happy and keep all the people that have too much to drink happy as well. But it's great. You know, I really enjoy it, and the most enjoyable thing for me is, you know, I get to see the team every week. You know, home and away. I go with the directors, obviously, when we go to away games, so I've got to behave myself a little bit better now. But I love it, you know, it's great to go and see the boys, and you know, I'm 100% behind them every single Saturday through the good times and the bad. You know, we've had a few sort of rocky spells recently, but, you know, hopefully we're on the crest to get back in the Premier League and we can start looking up again. Yeah,
I mean, what's it like? Like you say, you're one of the privileged few that get to be in the stadiums just now. What's it like seeing the guys on the park, but no atmosphere, if you know what I mean?
It's terrible. If I'm being, you know, brutally honest, you know, I'm a football fan, and, you know, football without fans isn't football for me. And, you know, I see the effect it has on a lot of people. You know, I see, like, you know, my dad at the minute, and obviously a few of my close friends and my brothers who, you know, follow Hearts everywhere, and they're not getting to go to the games. So I see that as a huge privilege that I can actually go to the games, you know, and I can understand why, you know, there's loads of people struggling at the moment, not just, you know, financially, but also with the fact they can't go and do things that they enjoy. And, you know, I feel for all the supporters of every club at the moment at the fact they're not getting to go and watch their team. But hopefully, on the other side of it, I think when fans do get to go back, they'll realise just how important, you know, things are in your even for me in my life, you know, my family, all that type of stuff. You realise everything that's really, really important to you, and we'll hopefully see a change in attitudes as well. You know, it's very difficult at the minute for players, I think, when players and managers, because you're getting criticised, you know, every single day of the week, no matter what happens. And that's something that obviously I didn't really have when I played, because you didn't have social media and all that. But you're getting it all the time now, so hopefully fans might be a wee bit, you know, a wee bit easier with players and managers and that when we start back and realise, you know, we'll try our best. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, which has happened to me on a couple of occasions. but it's not for the lack of, you know, trying your best, and, you know, fans have to realise that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when fans were allowed in grounds, you were spotted as well at your hometown's club, Bonnyrigg Rose. Is this your wee bit on the side? Is that the second love, is it?
No, it's always has been. You know, I'm kind of immensely proud, obviously, being from Bonnyrigg. You know, it's a small town. A lot bigger now, must I say, with all the new houses that are getting built. But, you know, I've always went and watched. You know, if Hearts weren't playing and I didn't have to go and watch other games, you know, I would always go and watch Bonnyrigg. I've got a lot of, you know, good friends there. I know Charlie, the chairman, well, Big Alan McLean and Michael Stewart, Peter Stanley. You know, they go everywhere with Bonnyrigg and watch them. And, you know, they're for me, they're proper fans. You know, they go through thick and thin and watch them everywhere. And I really enjoy watching them because they're really successful, you know, and I do pray that they get the opportunity to come up into League Two, because, you know, they've got all the facilities in place. They do a wonderful job with all the kids in the local community as well. You know, they're so well organised now, and they've got, for me, you know, they've got all the assets to become a really, really, you know, top club. And it's just obviously getting that opportunity, because, you know, even if they win the Lowland League, they've got about another 6 games to play before they can actually get up, which for me is horrific. You know, I think that's an embarrassment. But as I say, I didn't run the game in Scotland, but it's something that, for me, if they win the league, you know, they should get a better opportunity to come into League Two, that's for sure.
No, like you say, I mean, you've got the likes of Cove Rangers, Edinburgh City, who've all taken advantage of the pyramid system that had to jump through hoops.
Without a doubt.
So hopefully we can see the likes of Bonnyrigg there as well. I mean, you touched on something there that might be something that other people can take a leaf out of your book when football does return. You said if Hearts are not at home, you'll go watch your local team.
Yep.
The standard's actually really quite good, isn't it, at that level?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think they showed that. You know, they played Dundee in the Scottish Cup, and, you know, I know all the pressure's, you know, off, because everybody just expects Dundee to win. I've been there as a Hearts player. You get, you know, a lesser team in the cup, and if you didn't win 5-0, you know, you've had a nightmare. So I get all that, but they ran Dundee close. They've had great Scottish Cup runs in the last couple of seasons, and I think you see the potential. You know, when we played Hibs in the Scottish Cup, took 5,000 fans to the game at Tynecastle. They could have sold out New Dundas Park, you know, 3 or 4 times over. The last time we played in the Scottish Cup, so there's huge potential there, and I think they've got a lot to bring to the table if they were to come up the leagues, because they would get big crowds, and, you know, if they were playing against, you know, like ourselves or Hibs or that, you know, there'd be a huge crowd at the game, and I think that's only positive for the Scottish game.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gary Locke.
Thank you. Cheers, boys.